Got to manage my mind. The task is not easy, but to high heights I climb.
I'm determined to succeed, so no excuses, please. If you don't want success in life, then don't hinder me. Yes, let the whole world know you are a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. The time is here to celebrate. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. Yes, let the whole world know. The time is here to celebrate. Yes, it's calling, so don't be late. You are a CEO.
As you remember from last week, tonight we have a surprise replay for you, and I have Miss Barbin Shoshin with me tonight, and we are going to just allow you to jump right into this first segment, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the CEO moments. Enjoy.
And we're going to talk about one of the most important things in URCO, which is discovering the CEO moment. Now, I am so excited that tonight I get to bring a lot of the URCO team out from behind the scenes, because I want you to know, you hear a lot about Michael E. Parker, but every single member of the URCO team has their own story, just like you do. And I want to show you how all of us throughout our life, we've had many CEO moments. And the trick is, once we understand.
Terry, this has been a great discussion. And we left off and we're talking about who in the world are you, and really getting deep into personal awareness, self-awareness, self-discovery. And you told a wonderful story about a Holocaust survivor that had to make a choice. And this brings me to a topic that I want to build on, and we call it the CEO moment. So we talked about the fact that perspective is everything, but perspective only works for you when you can see the steering wheel and begin to choose your perspective, not just have a perspective, but choose a perspective. So I think, you know, this concept and ideology of a CEO moment, a moment or moments in my life where I realize I'm in charge. I mean, that is one of the most powerful, liberating things you could ever, you know, talk about. You know, what does that mean to you when you think about the CEO moment?
At the point of decision,
Right.
when I have the power to choose left or right,
Right.
you know, up or down,
Right.
that's a CEO moment, right? If I don't really have that power, that control, I'm really kind of just not doing much. But when I have to make an executive decision that can change the course of my day,
Right.
or the course of my personal history, those are what I kind of like to see as CEO moments.
That is really well defined, you know, because when you think about a CEO, you know, there's a lot of things and perceptions of a CEO, but at the end of the day, they're a decision maker.
That's right.
That's really what they are. I mean, because you know, as we work in the business world, you have approvals for this, approvals for that. Decisions need to be made here. Everyone's working, but when the rubber meets the road and there's a decision that needs to be made, eventually it'll arrive at that CEO to say, you know, what is the final decision here, and to think that we all possess that decision making power.
That's right.
Right, and that no one can take that away from you. It doesn't matter what you've accomplished or haven't accomplished. Every day you wake up, you've got several CEO moments to take place, but there are some CEO moments, wouldn't you say, that are more special than others? I mean, it's a CEO moment of what you chose to wear today, right? It's a CEO moment of, you know, what you gonna eat tonight, right? But there's some CEO moments that stand out that actually have the power to transition life or determine destiny.
Absolutely.
What do you say about those higher level CEO moments?
No, it's very important to understand, and I can imagine people saying, "Well, that's all fine and dandy, but how do you recognize a CEO moment, right?" When we're talking about awareness, we're talking about levels of awareness. You could be totally unaware, so that's below awareness level, but then you can have hindsight awareness. And this is where the CEO can be discovered and unleashed, right? Because I can look back on my life. I never heard of a CEO moment, but I could start looking back and say, that was a CEO. That was a CEO moment. That right there was a CEO moment. And you can start to see what happened based on the decision that you made, which prepares you for present awareness. So now I can see when I'm in a CEO moment, like, oh, this right now is a CEO moment. And so you're right. Some things can alter your whole life. Your decision that you're going to make right now will impact you 20 years down the line. And so that's why it's very important to be able to recognize them so you can make the right decision in the moment of decision versus just doing something that you feel. Right.
Now, I really love what you just said about hindsight, because what you're basically saying is if I can understand the CEO moments I've already had, decisions I made, good or bad, things that really catapulted my life, good or bad. But if I could see those in the past, it could increase my skill and IQ to recognize them in the present.
Absolutely.
And then I can more consciously recognize a CEO moment and more consciously make a decision that's best for me. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So a CEO moment, for me, I just pick one, right? So coming out of high school, I played football, played basketball, and I ran track. In football, there's 54 people on a roster, so it's a little easier to get a scholarship. So I had football scholarships pretty much anywhere I wanted to go on the West Coast. I was number 4 and number 5 in the event, and I ran the hurdles, and I could have got track scholarships. But I loved basketball. So
me too.
I turned down the football and track scholarships knowingly. To go play basketball, but I didn't get a scholarship. So I turned down scholarships to go to junior college. Right? And I had to be okay with that decision because that's what I wanted to do. And I was very aware of it. So that's just an example of kind of hindsight, but it did alter my history.
And it actually, determined the trajectory of your life.
Absolutely.
And kind of the direction that you end up going. I share a CEO moment for me. I often talk about when, just coming through a certain type of upbringing and not having really good study skills, learning skills, not getting the best grades, class clown, all of that. Just a lot going on at home that was so serious that by the time you got to school, you didn't want to be serious. And so took away from my learning. But I made the mistake of thinking that was just my inability to learn or my inability to get an A in a class, right? And I never forget finally meeting this young Asian lady, and she was getting straight A's, and finally I got up the nerve to find out what is it that she was doing. I saw her head wasn't no bigger than mine. It seemed like her brain was physically bigger, or what was it? Was she? You're intimidated. You think someone maybe is smarter than you, but I talked to her, and she told me that she did her homework right after class, so it was fresh in her mind. She, made sure that she got the proper rest. She made sure that, she even ate right. She even got enough sleep. She even sacrificed going some places for fun so that she could stay on top and be in front of that next quiz. She had a question. She went, after class and talked to the teacher. So when she got done, I said, there's no secret sauce here. This is just hard work. This is just decision to fight. And, you start looking at, well, I've been through worse things than she's been through. I have a lot of ability to deal with challenge. If this is just about pushing yourself and working hard, I can do that. And did you know that transformed my educational path, because I started to get straight A's. I started to get the better grades, not because I got smarter, but I recognized the CEO moment that allowed me to take control and take charge of my educational career. This is what we're talking about.
This is what we're talking about, And that empowered you, right? To say, you know what, my academics will no longer suffer because what she does, I can do that too, right? And then in my case, it helped me be able to make tough decisions for myself. That wasn't easy to make that decision. So now, next time a tough decision comes up, I've done this before. I can make a hard decision based on what I value, right? And I don't have to listen to all the birds that's chirping. I can actually stay focused on what I value. So it's things like that you start to develop. And we can talk about other things where maybe we didn't make the right choice.
That's right, absolutely.
And that created a rhythm too, and we had to learn how to deal with that.
Absolutely, absolutely. This has been great. We've been talking about the CEO moment. I'm here in the podcast studio. You are a CEO with Terry Fulton, who is our Chief Content Officer. I am Michael E. Parker, founder of You Are CEO. And we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk a little bit more about You Are CEO. I want to maybe talk a little bit about what does it really mean, all this talk about the business of you. We'll be right back.
Well, wasn't that a great segment about the CEO moment? So I know you all probably, those that had a chance to see that before, we're talking about tonight, our CEO moment. So Bar, first of all, glad that we're on this show tonight together.
Yes, very happy to be here with you,
Yes.
Lashana.
So let's just talk about share a little bit about what you got out of that segment, because Michael and Terry were talking about CEO moments, and I really liked what they kind of started off talking about was identifying when you had those CEO moments before we learned that that's what we actually had experienced being a CEO. So share a little bit about what did you get out of that segment?
Yeah, so first of all, the segment is so full. There is so much you can learn from it. I almost want to watch it again, and I did write down some things that I got from it. I think what touched me the most and what I felt that I'm doing while watching the segment is think about my CEO moments. And like they mentioned, it can be big moments, it can be an everyday decision, but look back, recognize those CEO moments, understand that, I am a CEO, I can choose, I can make decisions for my own. And then that increase your awareness about the decisions that you make, and you can make better decisions.
That's really good, because I think Terry mentioned that about making a decision in the moment, at the point of the decision. And that's what you're talking about, that that we actually can make a CEO decision. At the end of the day, CEOs are decision makers. That's what we do. We both know, we can attest to that. We're making decisions all day, every day as being the CEO of our lives. And at the moment, I like something that Terry mentioned too, is that when you look at the CEO moments that you've made in the past, you can actually use them to make better decisions in the future. So I really like that as well that they talked about.
Yes, absolutely. Another thing that I love that Mr. Parker said is he had a CEO moment of getting up, approach that lady, that she was a CEO too.
Yes, she was.
And he surrounded himself with another CEO, learned from her, and he adopted some things that she did, and it helped him become successful. So that's another thing that I see in your CEO, surround yourself with successful and same-minded people.
No, that's really good, because what I like about that story too, Bar, is when Mr. Parker was talking about having the ability to fight, because after he talked with her, he realized that this was good that you said she was a CEO and didn't know it. But she really made some really good decisions. But when Mr. Parker talked to her and realized, well, what she's doing, that's not something that you or I couldn't do. He realized it's something that he could do. So he kind of found out what was her blueprint. And for everyone out there watching, I know that you all can do the same thing and find out what's a blueprint that you could use to actually go through the exact same experience, whether or not it's in school to go along with the same story. You might be in a class and just someone that you're drawn to for some reason, have courage. I think you and I talked about that a little bit earlier. Mr. Parker's show demonstrated that he had the courage to find out what exactly are you doing to get these types of grades. And once he talked with her and they had a really great discussion, he said it was just a matter of implementing that within himself. He said, well, I could do that, So I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, too. We have some CEO moments that we will probably share a little bit later. But we actually have had some experiences where we had to fight. You want to just give a little bit?
Well, maybe we'll leave it for later.
All right, no problem.
But it did resonate with me too that I can do what she does.
Yes.
I didn't become any smarter. I just worked harder. And CEOs, they work hard.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, that's a great time to. I think we can transition to our next segment on CEO moments. So take a listen in to some of the team as they share their CEO moments.
And we're going to talk about one of the most important things in URCO, which is discovering the CEO moment. Now, I am so excited that tonight I get to bring a lot of the URCO team out from behind the scenes, because I want you to know, you hear a lot about Michael E. Parker, but every single member of the URCO team has their own story, just like you do. And I want to show you how all of us throughout our life, we've had many CEO moments. And the trick is, once we understand what really happened and how to use URCO's philosophy, tools, resources, and the whole mindset, we learn how to notice those moments in the future and use them creatively to create new success stories in our life. So right here in studio right now, I've already got some of the URCO team. It's so good to have all of you here. I have Megan, I have Charlene, and I have Samaya. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
All right, y'all almost sound like y'all singing there. This is going to be a fun conversation and yet a serious one. I want you all to know how much, first of all, I'm so happy to have you all as a part of this team. You all offer so much, but I want to let everyone into you all's world just a little bit, and we're just going to talk a little bit. And so I'm going to start with you, Charlene, and I know you didn't know I was going to pick on you, but Char, I want to start with you. I think when you think about your life, and not everyone may not know, I know you grew up in a biracial family, but I also know one big thing I know you had to come through is you were in a very abusive relationship at one point in your life. And when you think about your life and what you know now about URCO, tell me a little bit about how in some of those areas of your life, when you started to recognize you needed to take a stand for yourself and maybe a decision needed to be made.
Well, I think that's a great question, and it's great to be here. And I enjoy working with this team. You all are all amazing. And I think that's a great question. And for me, you know, growing up, as you said, in a home that was biracial, my father wasn't there. I struggled fitting in with different groups because I was either too much like another group and not enough like another group. So there was this constant journey of, well, who I am, where do I fit in, what do I have to offer, you know. And so for me, as you referenced, I was in a very abusive relationship, mentally, physically. And there was a point, though, where it was enough. And I didn't know how. I just knew I had to make a change, that I couldn't continue as I was. I didn't know what the change would be. I didn't know even how to do it. But I had to kind of take a leap of faith, really.
Right. I really appreciate you being willing to share that. And I know there's a lot of women out there that are in very difficult situations, and when they hear stories like yours, it can inspire them that, you know, there's a point where you say enough is enough. And you know, one thing, Shar, it's really amazing how your mind can get stuck in a vein to where you don't even realize that you're not living the life that you want. You get stuck. Would you agree with that?
Definitely, and I felt like I was stuck. And it's interesting, you know, being young, just 18, 19 years old, you think that this is what it is, so how do I make the best of it? And you don't even realize that there could be another way. That learning hasn't been developed, it hasn't been taught. So you just are trying to make the best out of what it is, and which is why I really appreciate URCO, because it's gonna teach you how to identify those signs so that you can get to those opportunities the right way. And I felt like that was a big aha for me.
Very, very good. I want to swing over to Megan. And Megan, I know you're from Florida. I know you grew up as, you know, this is kind of not always a common situation where you have a dad that's the single parent raising a daughter in Florida. And I know that had to be tough growing up. And I know I think you were in Key West, but then I know you ended up going to Miami.
Right.
And there was a lot you went through in Miami. And can you tell me a little bit about just reaching a crossroad where you started to see that something in your life needed to change, that awakening?
Yeah. Like you mentioned, growing up with my dad, I'm thankful for him. At least I had one really stable parent, and some people don't have any. So
That's right. Yeah.
I'm very thankful for him. But of course, you struggle as a young girl, without a mom, because you need that woman figure. And also thankful that there were at least figures in my life, some of my close friends' mothers who, really saw a need and kind of took that time and things like that. So that was good, but of course it doesn't replace, a mom.
Right.
And even if you weren't a woman, anyone missing a mother is very significant lack in your life.
Sure.
So of course I struggled, and then as I got older, things start coming out when you can actually live your life on your own. So the minute I turned 18 and graduated from high school, I really went on a downward slope fast. I did move to Miami, and in my mind, I just was like, I want to get away from Key West. Key West is a really small town, and I wanted to experience life and all that it had that I was interested in doing. So, but in doing that, I ended up really spiraling down into some things that were not good, different substances, and just really, I was supposed to be in college. I wasn't attending college. So, and then I was just, going out every night, things like that. Just my life was just a wreck. And I remember when it was probably like 6 months down the road that I had a CO moment, which I didn't know was a CO moment at the time. But like you mentioned and Shar mentioned, it was a point where I said, I can't do this anymore. This is not the life I want to live. And I immediately called my dad and told him I'm coming back to Key West, and I just needed, totally changed my life. And so I'm glad it was only 6 months of that. But it did take a decision, because of course, you're humbled by having to reach back out to my dad, like, okay, I'm supposed to be on my own.
But even that was 6 months, though. I mean, that it was a buildup of many, many years of many different things that was all waiting to explode. It kind of exploded in Miami, but it was a buildup. But even within that, you had to get to a point where you saw, I need to make a decision. And you could have not noticed that, but you did notice, and you made that call, which was an executive decision.
I didn't know it at the time.
Absolutely. No, really, thank you for sharing that, Megan. That is such a powerful story, and I want to build on that and swing over to Samaya. Now, Samaya, I know you grew up in one of the roughest cities in the world, is Oakland, California, and you grew up in the projects, and I happen to know some of the areas you were from. You had a single mom, but not only that, you were kind of like a fish out of water, where you had to survive Oakland, but you weren't really Oakland. Like, there was something in you that was a little different. How did you deal with that, growing up in an environment like that and realizing that there was something in you that needed to make a different type of decision?
It's good to be here. So thank you for having all of us and allowing us to open up and share our CEO moment. Growing up in Oakland, if you haven't visited Oakland, Oakland's very diverse, and there's a stigma on it, especially where I grew up, which is West Oakland. I lived in both sides, and I lived in a very impoverished part of West Oakland, and my mom kept a real close, tight grip on us because she was fearful that of what we might be exposed to. But of course, you can only do that so much. You get out in the school, and growing up, you still are exposed to a lot of things, and you hear things even at home. I've seen a lot of abuse as well, and substances all around. Of course, that tight knit, community my mom tried to create at home, it really helped create a foundation and, give myself a consciousness to what's good and bad. But I still had to make a decision of myself on who I was going to be. So as I began to grow up and I began to grow up and be a teenager, there is a lot of high school dropouts, a lot of, especially girls, they have children young.
Right.
And it could be a lot of pressure to follow suit. There was a time where I went to a very rough high school, and I knew I just didn't quite fit in because of how my mom raised us. I just was like, I would go out into the community and different things. It's like, I don't fit in anywhere. So there might be, someone that want to do drugs, and I was like, well, my mom told me about that. I don't fit there. And then somebody wants to do this. They want to join this, and well, I don't do that. So where do I fit? What do I do? So a lot of times I would drop out and stay home from school because it's like, I don't want to go and be a part of that.
Wow.
And so at 15, I dropped out of school, and that's not me. I was someone that loved to learn. I loved to learn. I loved school, but I didn't like that. And I didn't fit in, and I got teased a lot. So I stayed home, and it's like, that's like the opposite. Someone that likes to learn, they drop out. Why would they do that? Environment is so important. But I did end up, I think at 15, my mom said, what are you gonna do? You can't continue this way. What are you gonna do? So then I found myself at a crossroad, and I ended up joining an at-risk group, even though I wasn't an at-risk child, to test out and try and get my degree to pass and graduate from high school.
Wow, and see, that was a CEO moment. You even at 15 saying, I can't do this anymore, right? That was an executive decision, but then it looks like that led to an unorthodox way of getting to success through a at-risk program for someone who wasn't at risk.
I wasn't at risk, so I would go to these classes, which is at this park called Defirmary Park. It was a large park right in the middle of West Oakland. So you have homeless people over on the side, and then you had a pool. It's a place where the kids went to recreate, but you saw a lot. And then they had this big house in the middle, and that's where they had a lot of classes. So I would go there to have fun and recreate, but they had this one class that was really small for kids that were, at risk and had to drop out. So I joined myself to that. It's like, if you all could help me get my degree so I don't have to go and finish
You didn't care
school.
what they called it.
I didn't care, and I just assembled myself, and I did get my degree.
Wow. Now that is a powerful CEO, moment, and congrats to you for what you made out of that. Now, everything y'all have shared is so important. Now, I want to stay here, but we got some more team we're going to talk to. Before we go, give me a quick 20-second statement that you would say to someone watching this that is listening to this and thinking about, that CEO moment. How important is it to recognize when you need to take charge of your life? What would you say? What's a quick thing you would say? I'm gonna start with you, Megan.
I would say if you notice that your life is not where you want it to be, or even just a situation in life that you don't like, that you can have the courage to change it, and that just to have, I would just say the courage and make a decision. You just have to start taking action.
Beautiful, beautiful. Courage is a big one, Sharp.
I thought that was great. I would say to not be afraid of what's going to happen next.
That's good.
You want to make a decision, and like you said, having that courage, not being afraid, but just going for it.
Right, that's good. And we talk about fear a lot in URCO. Very good. Samaya, give us a final thought on that.
Yeah, and you are a CEO. Like, only you can make the decision. As you're growing up or reaching different phases of your life, you can be whoever you want to be. You can achieve whatever you want. It really is up to you. So as we said, don't be afraid to make that decision.
Thank you. That's a great ending to this segment.
Well, welcome back, everyone. That was an amazing segment. Bar, let's just talk about that for a few minutes. Some of the things that, first of all, want to say congratulations to Megan Charlene and Samaya, because what they shared, their CEO moments that they, chose to share, were very personal. And so really appreciated them, having the courage to share. I think Mr. Parker mentioned that as well, that they had the courage to actually share those CEO moments. So one thing I was thinking about as we were listening to them, Bar, is all three of them talked about having courage. They talked about they came to a point in their lives where they had to make a decision, to make a change, to do something different. And after they made that decision, they really had to have some perseverance and commitment to maintain the decision that they made, right? Because being a CEO, our mindsets, we have to strive for excellence, but the fight, as Mr. Parker talked about in the first segment, is very real, and so the opportunity is there. But being a CEO, living our lives as a CEO, we really have to have courage and really persevere to make sure we sustain and accomplish all the goals. So why don't you share a CEO moment with everyone? Let's join ourselves to the conversation with Megan, Charlene, and Samaya. Share a CEO moment.
Sure, I'll be happy to. First, let me say that I really enjoyed the segment, and I appreciate, like you said, Megan, Samaya, and Char for opening up, have the courage, and it also shows that your CEO is built of everyday people.
Yes.
With everyday stories,
sure.
Showing that everyone struggle. I don't know if there's any person that just gets it all on a silver plate and has no problems.
Yeah.
We're real people that deal with real life. Watching this segment made me think about a CEO moment that I had where I was working for a solar company for about 3 years. And after 3 years, I said to myself, why can't I do it on my own?
Yeah.
Why won't I open a solar company? Which was also a CEO moment. I just knew that I had the knowledge and the skill, and I believed that I could.
Yeah.
The thing is that I made so many mistakes that I got to a point where things were so bad, where I had to, it was at a point where I almost had to pack up my things and go back to Israel and leave things as is. I didn't even get to the point of opening a company.
Wow.
My bank account was almost gone. Things just did not move. And it was very hard. And I didn't even see what can happen so that I can get up from it.
Yeah.
But at that point, I knew that I can either give up or get up.
Yeah.
And even though I didn't know how, I decided to stay and to fight.
Yeah.
I really liked what Char said. It almost felt like a leap of faith. Because sometimes you need to have the courage, you need to believe in yourself.
Absolutely.
You need to take charge. It's a CEO moment. And one thing that I've learned through my life is if you work hard, there will be results. You just keep on pushing. So one thing led to another. I ended up opening the solar company. It ended up being a very successful solar company, also thanks to Mr. Parker and different ones on the team. But that also what brought me here, to be surrounded by people with the same mind to fight, to succeed, and to work hard. And I'm just happy.
That is an amazing CEO moment. I mean, I would like you said, one thing I noticed from your story, from Megan, Charlene, and Samaya is that CEOs have to have courage. And that CEOs really have to make sure that they believe in their dreams, and that CEOs make sure that if no one else is going to make the dream come to reality, a CEO is going to, because it's yours. So as when you had to make a decision with your business, whether or not you were going to stay or pack up, I mean, that was a critical moment that if you would have chose the other way, it could have certainly changed your trajectory of your life.
Right. I think that Terry mentioned something like that. It can determine your future.
Absolutely.
Those moments.
Absolutely.
So with your CEO, I know it now, but there is an awareness IQ. There is courage, and we have it within ourselves, and we need to unleash that. And it brings results.
Yeah, well, you know what, Bar, we could talk about this because I was going to say I had a lot more I wanted to say about your story, specifically because of the courage that I mentioned that you had to display, but also because the climate that we're in now, you actually were speaking about some business owners. They are actually, this is where they are now. This is the mindset that they needed to hear about tonight, is someone to say, listen, this was your dreams, this was your goals, you've invested everything into it, and so in spite of everything that's happening, you have to do everything that you can to make sure that you make your dreams your reality, and don't give up. So we'll have to maybe have a part 2 and talk about this some more, because as a business owner, again, you spoke their language. So appreciate you sharing that CEO moment. So hopefully everyone, you enjoyed tonight's show. I mean, as we said, it was a surprise replay, but what better way to start our week off with talking about CEO moments. I'm sure all of you probably jotted down some that you have had in the past. And so without further ado, we're going to make sure that you are getting ready for next week's show. And that is going to be Monday, December the 7th. It's going to be another surprise replay, so stay tuned next Monday the 7th at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And so between now and then, get out there and let the whole world know, Barb,
that you are a CEO.
Good night, everyone.
Yes, let the whole world know. A CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. You are a CEO. I'm a CEO. The time is here to celebrate. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. You are a CEO. A CEO. Yes, let the whole world know. The time is here to celebrate.